Okay, so forewarning, this is my first time doing a video like this ever, so please understand and I hope you like it.
Hello, I'm Mr. Eagleman, and I created an independent animated pilot in just about 7 months. So, as you saw from the title, my pilot kinda didn't do so great. At the time of writing, it's been out for about 2 years and sitting at about 4K views and a little over 350 likes. I swear some doodles I've made on Twitter have seen better numbers than that. While it was definitely disappointing, I can't say I wasn't expecting it. In fact, I was prepared to embrace it being a bit of a flop from the start. To understand what happened though, let's dive into how I developed Mystic Adventures. So, in order to graduate from my university, every senior had to create a BFA piece that would be shown in a gallery space. We had about 2 semesters, or around 7 months, to work on a single piece based on our field of study, my track being art and tech. Every student is aware of this project before becoming a senior and asked to start doing some initial planning before the semester starts. I thought long and hard about what I wanted to do, and I was originally pretty set on creating a video game. It did not take long for me to realize I wasn't cut out for producing something of that scale in the 7 month period, though. A friend of mine did, though, like, mad congrats to him. His project came out amazing. Anyways, I was stumbling around what I should do, and I ended up talking to a friend from high school, and she said, "You should make the cartoon that you wanted to make. That's the whole reason you went to college, right?" And she was kind of right. So we might need to go back a little more to understand what this cartoon even is. Let's backtrack for a moment. For years, since I was in middle school, I had been developing the idea for a cartoon called Mystic Adventures. It was incredibly inspired by the likes of Steven Universe and Wander Over Yonder, which were still airing at the time. And as I went to high school, the ideas just never stopped. Mystic Adventures was like a mess of all these high concept world building ideas that it was just everything I liked meatballed into like one little package. It had no plot, it had no progression, it had no fleshed out characters, but it was a world with its own history and its own form of unique logic and ideas. And so, as I entered college, Mystic Adventures was still at the top of my mind. However, college had a lot of different plans for me. I ended up experimenting a lot more, trying out new mediums, learning how to create new ideas from scratch, and really apply more research and care and development to whatever I made. So, years passed, and I started to become a little more distant from Mystic Adventures, but it always permeated some part of my brain. When my friend suggested I go back to Mystic Adventures and create it as my BFA thesis, it all just clicked. I knew how to more professionally handle that myriad of fun ideas and turn it into an actual animated work. Of course, the hardest part was where to start. As a BFA thesis, it'd be a bad idea to start with an episode 1. The project needed an ethos, a hard message with some follow through or statement. My idea for episode 1 would just be too focused on introductions and characters to be a viable BFA piece. So I decided to go the on media res route, which is to say, making an episode in the middle of the story at some point. Something that shows off the characters while also being able to follow a more convenient and entertaining plot thread with a message attached. This was the moment I knew this pilot would be a failure online. The juxtaposition between what my BFA wanted to see and what a general audience might want to see was huge. To make matters worse, I'd never have enough time to put in advertising, the production, given I had to do the entire process myself. And on top of that, I have plenty of creative friends, but barely any in the animation sphere that might be able to signal boost the project to the greater online world. So my pilot's fate was sealed, and it actually didn't bother me that much. The goal was to create something I wanted to make, to create something my classmates and friends wanted to see me make for years. The whole project was wrapped in sentimentality and passion that had been boiling over for half of my life. It didn't matter if it didn't do that well, because it was what I wanted to make. And that passion, that inexplicable drive I had to create, it saw that 7 month deadline and my 8.5 minute long script and said, screw it, let's go. I storyboarded almost the entire episode in one night on like actual paper with pencil with some of the scrappiest thumbnails you've probably ever seen. I got some friends to voice act, as well as someone I didn't know from a little casting call I put out on Twitter. Thank you very much, Vivian Reed. Your performance was excellent, by the way. And then I animated the thing. I did most of the music myself, though I did have a little help from my friend Ampersand Dragons to create a couple acoustic themes, which were fantastic too. I even utilized one of my 3D classes assignments to create the main location of the episode, the temple. The months marched on, and so did I. It got down to the wire at a certain point. I essentially had to have the whole project done by the end of spring break, and I still had a minute or two of animating to do. Needless to say, I worked my butt off every day during that break, but it really gave me all the time I needed to finish, especially not having to spend hours on transit just to get to college for the classes. Anyways, April had just begun, and holy crap, I finished Mystic Adventures.
What's with the glowy hair? Is that normal?
Whoa! The head of my department loved it, though the heads of my senior project class were never big fans. That's a story for another day, though. Getting to see audiences actually watch it live was just another experience, and honestly made me feel a lot more confident about the project, even if I knew it probably wouldn't do so hot online. Not long after the show, I uploaded the project to YouTube, and the rest is history. Now, the real meat and potatoes, why did it fail so hard? Well, lack of advertising, very little publicity, somewhat rushed animation. Yeah, I'll be the first to admit my pilot didn't look amazing. There are some jank looking shots in there. I'll never know for sure, but that's why I'm making this video actually. What would happen if I had a bigger presence in the animation sphere, if more people knew who I was and might have interest in my stuff? My hope for Mystic Adventures never died, and even though the pilot failed online, I know almost everyone who did watch had a pretty good time. I want to keep creating it, but I know the only way to do that is if the series gets more support and is more known. So that brought me to this video. I recently started creating a proper episode 1 of Mystic Adventures, and maybe if I have more of an active presence here on YouTube, it won't fall into relative obscurity like the pilot. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I can make more. I'd like talking about the production of the next episode, maybe bi-weekly updates, maybe talk about other hurdles and experiences I've had with both animation and college, and eventually, maybe I can present the next episode of Mystic Adventures.
Also, please subscribe if you do want to see future updates. I'd appreciate it. And leave a comment if any of that stuff interests you or what you might like to see out of me. Oh, also, I have a Patreon. I do development updates for Mystic Adventures on there, so if you really want to like go the extra mile for supporting me, you can just subscribe to a tier there. Anything would be like amazing. The Patreon will be linked in the pinned comment. Even just commenting, liking, subscribing, all that, like that's amazing too. Anyways, thanks.